Well, I'd love to stand up here and just talk to you without having to use these notes, but time goes fast and my mind wanders even faster. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about how communication affects me. I've always loved words, kind of a wordy, I guess you could say. I wanted to have a large vocabulary because I was bothered by the reality that in general, people think that somebody or somebody that looks different like my sister and I do, they think that we have mental disabilities as well. I figured by using big, important words, I would be showing people that I'm intelligent. Regardless, looking different makes a permanent nonverbal impression that is really difficult to change or take back, unlike verbal ones. People will think whatever they will, whether it's true or not. Well, Heather seems relatively unaffected by this and has come to terms with her nonverbal appearance. It has been and still is extremely difficult for me to deal with. As you can imagine, I was pretty disappointed when I was diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum. I guess the official diagnosis is PCD-NOS, which is pervasive developmental disorder, none other specified. So I'm not specified. Having this diagnosis kind of benefits me in a way. I'm not expected to fit into a mold or any set way of thinking or labels for autism or anything for that matter. On the other hand, I have a visceral need for clear, definable parameters in everything that I do, without which I have chronic anxiety. From about age 13, I lived in denial about my looks by learning how to act like everybody else. In order to do this, I became hyper-focused on how normal, quote-unquote normal, people socially articulate themselves. I copied their every move the best I could and learned a lot of the common body language used with unspoken communication. I assume this is how I did so well socially, even though I have autism. Essentially, I became a sort of social chameleon by acting the kind of person I was in the presence of. If they were intellectual, so was I. If they were funny, so was I. If they were sarcastic, I was too. But there was a downside to this. Critically watching how people talked, moved, and communicated became the catalyst for my obsessive-compulsive disorder. My shield of normalcy that I built around me prevailed until I graduated from high school. In my early 20s, reality hit, requiring excessive amounts of alcohol and marijuana. At first, it was extremely successful, but like any addiction, ultimately caused depression and made me extremely unbalanced. Over the next 10 years, working with great doctors and finding effective medications, I leveled out a little bit. I know I have a lot to offer people, and I'm trying to find ways to do that. Most importantly, I'm learning how to communicate more better. There's still a lot to learn about communication. Being naturally intuitive, I sense people's emotions rather quickly. This is good and bad. Most of the time I'm right, but I used to assume I was always right. This is one of hundreds of examples where I overgeneralize facts due to autism. This is where checking in, as Mom was saying, or the action part of the AAAs would have been beneficial. You see, deciding I already knew a person based on a couple facts before finding out differently, and also thinking I knew how my experience would be during a certain activity or in an unknown environment helped give me the confidence and felt safe when entering unknown territory. You never know when you're going to run into a landmine though. Around 5 to 7 years ago, I was participating in an EEG neurofeedback exercise program to treat for my ADHD. Psychologists I was working with picked up on my perceptions that weren't quite normal. I think the term she used was askew. Not really what I wanted to hear. I walked into her office thinking my usual high confidence and awareness and everything, and walked out with none. That was also the time autism was tackled onto my shit list. I didn't know how to relate to myself or others after that. I felt completely unsafe in the world, and I'm still recovering from that. I'm working on finding out what truths are, my truths, making assessments and plotting my plan of attack on the world. Currently I'm working on what I call my syndrome series of paintings, which focuses on physical and psychological aspects of my life. It's another way to communicate to the world, except this time it's on my terms. I work as a self-employed artist. Some of you may know that already. I sell my originals and do commissions and sell prints and greeting cards and all that fun stuff. Although I got my degree in graphic design, I like painting a lot more. And anyway, back to communication. I wanted to mention that there is a pretty big difference between being honest and being truthful. Stating the facts about how you feel isn't necessarily the truth, even though I kind of think it is sometimes. In response to what my mom said about lacking communication during her golf game, because she didn't show feelings of anger, depression, or sadness, and I was constantly struggling with those types of feelings, I felt inadequate whenever I was around her. She always acted happy, or only portrayed a positive disposition and la-di-da. That pissed me off, naturally. I felt like she was being fake. Either that or I was abnormal because I was seemingly always negative. That's why I couldn't relate to her. After a while, I started hiding my positive emotions. Often, she or anybody for that matter really knows how I'm feeling, except when I'm really angry and can't contain it anymore. I'm not saying that my mom's behavior is the reason I act this way, mostly from that, but I might have copied her behavior, concealing all feelings and emotions in most situations, because I wanted to be accepted and seen as normal. I didn't want to give any clues as to how I really felt or I'd be exposed. Having physical differences and wanting to fit in is the main reason I hyper-focused on watching how Mom and other people acted in the first place. Maybe I wouldn't have learned this protective behavior if I didn't have Miller syndrome, so who knows. I'm sure my reactions or lack thereof are compounded by having autism. The end result